Then it is said, سَنُلْقِي فِي قُلُوبِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا الرُّعْبَ بِمَا أَشْرَكُوا بِاللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يُنَزِّلْ بِهِ سُلْطَانًا. We will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve for what they have associated with Allah, of which He had not sent down any authority. وَمَأْوَاهُمُ النَّارِ, and their refuge will be the fire. وَبِئْسَ مَثْوَى الظَّالِمِينَ, and wretched is the residence of the wrongdoers. So we see over here that in the hearts of those who disbelieve, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cast a ru'b. What is a ru'b? Terror, fear. And this is amazing. The mushrikeen had attacked the Muslims again. And the Muslims, they basically had to take shelter in the mountain of Uhud. And the mushrikeen knew that the Prophet ﷺ was still alive. They knew that Abu Bakr was still alive. They knew that Umar radiallahu anhu was still alive. They knew that they had not completely, destroyed the Muslims. They knew that there were people in Medina. But what happened? The mushrikeen went back to Mecca. If you think about it, they could have stayed there. They could have gone and found every single one of the Muslims and killed him. But they did not. They went back. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cast terror into their hearts. And we learn about this man, Ubay ibn Khalaf, that he had said to the Prophet ﷺ that I am going to kill you. And the Prophet ﷺ actually responded to him that no, inshallah, I will kill you. So what happened at Uhud is that Ubay ibn Khalaf, he actually found the Prophet ﷺ and he came charging towards him. And as he was coming towards the Prophet ﷺ and he was trying to, attack the Prophet ﷺ, he missed. And the Prophet ﷺ, he actually struck Ubay ibn Khalaf with a spear. And that spear barely scratched Ubay ibn Khalaf in his neck. Ubay ibn Khalaf didn't really get, badly wounded. He survived. But on the way back to Makkah, he kept saying that Muhammad has killed me. I'm dead, I'm finished. And when the people saw his neck, they told him that it's just a minor cut. You'll be fine. But Ubay ibn Khalaf was petrified. He was so afraid. And really, he actually died on the way back to Makkah. So his fear overcame him. And this fear is actually something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with. In a hadith, we learned the Prophet ﷺ said that I was given 5 things that no other prophet before me was given. And one of them is that I was aided with fear the distance of 1 month. Meaning, my enemy is afraid of me. They would keep away from me a distance of 1 month because of the fear that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has cast into their heart. And why is this fear there? Because they associate partners with Allah. And this shows us that when a person associates partners with Allah, they live with fear. They live with fear. And when a person believes in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then what happens is that they have strength of heart. They have courage. They have confidence. This doesn't mean that a person doesn't fear anything. Of course they do, but they know that Allah is there. And they learn to rely upon Allah. And that belief in Allah's oneness is something that strengthens a person, which a person who does not believe in Allah can never have. So, وَمَأْوَاهُمُ النَّارُ وَبِئْسَ مَثْوَى الظَّالِمِينَ, and their refuge will be the fire, and wretched is the residence of the wrongdoers. وَلَقَدْ صَدَقَكُمُ اللَّهُ وَعْدَهُ, and Allah had certainly fulfilled His promise to you, His promise of victory to you. Is تَحُسُّونَهُمْ بِإِذْنِهِ, when you were killing the enemy by His permission. Meaning at the beginning of the battle, yes, you were winning, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fulfilled His promise to you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sent His angels to support you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aided you. He gave you victory. But then what happened? حَتَّى إِذَا فَشِلْتُمْ, until when you lost courage. فَشِلْتُمْ. فَشِلْتُمْ, this is when a person begins to lose courage. And why is it that some Muslims began to lose courage? When their focus shifted, when their intentions changed. And that is when people saw that the enemy was retreating and the Muslims were now, collecting the war booty. So the Muslims who were watching them, felt, what about us? we're going to miss out. So that despair, or that shift in focus, that self-pity, led them to what? Led them to وَتَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. And you fell to disputing with one another. And what is it that they were disputing in? The order given by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Remember that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had clearly instructed the people that he had appointed over that small hill, that you must not move from here until I call you. That even if you see our bodies are being snatched by the birds, meaning we have been slain and the birds are eating our bodies, even then you're not going to move until I send for you, I call you. But what happened? When they saw, that the enemy was retreating, they said, let's go now. The battle is over. Let's go. So, tanazartum, you went back and forth regarding the clear order of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَعَصَيْتُم مِّن بَعْدِ مَا أَرَاكُم مَّا تُحِبُّونَ. And you disobeyed after he had shown you that which you love. And what is it that you love? Money, the world. So when you saw the war booty, and you thought you disobeyed the instruction of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you went to gather the war booty, and you look at what happened. You lost the victory that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given you. And this is something that we can also relate with. And we must, reflect on our lives based on this ayah. That how, sometimes a person is doing something good for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then when they start looking at the dunya, they start looking at, things that other people are accumulating, and they get tempted to get that. Their focus shifts. They begin to have self-pity that what's going to become of me. There's that FOMO. Then what happens? A person's attitude changes. And when that attitude changes and they start pursuing the world, then they begin to lose the help of Allah also. So it is very important that we keep our eyes fixed on the real prize. And what is that real prize? The prize that is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reward that Allah has promised, which is actually in the hereafter. It's not in the world. And for that, a person must keep working. So, مِن بَعْدِ مَا أَرَاكُم مَا تُحِبُّونَ, after he had shown you that which you love. And you know what? We are going to be tested every now and then. We are going to be tested where we're going to find out that, for example, right now you are spending time with the Quran. And what happens? You find out that, someone is, having so much fun watching, a movie, or for instance, someone is, preparing such and such food for lunch or for dinner, and someone else is, doing something else, having fun, and you feel like you're missing out. So these tests will be there, but it is important that when we are doing something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we stay committed. We remain firm until the very end. We don't shift our focus. مِنْكُمْ مَنْ يُرِيدُ الدُّنْيَا وَمِنْكُمْ مَنْ يُرِيدُ الْآخِرَةِ. Among you are some who desire this world, and among you are some who desire the hereafter. Allahu Akbar. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu said that I did not think any of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam desired the world until this ayah was revealed. And this shows us that there's always room for improvement. And if we look deep down into our hearts, and if we were honest with ourselves, yes, we do desire the world. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows who we are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the diseases which are within our hearts. So those people who left their positions, they were those who desired the world. And those who remained in their positions, they're the ones who desired the hereafter. And remember that when a person desires the world, then this is something that weakens the heart. And it also weakens a person in the eyes of others. In a hadith, we learn that the Prophet ﷺ said that a time will come when different nations will invite each other to attack you Muslims, just as people invite each other to eat food. So one of the companions asked that, is it because we will be very few in number? The Prophet ﷺ said, no, you will be many, but you will be like the scum on the water, like garbage, right? That has no worth in the eyes of people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove your fear from the hearts of your enemies, meaning your enemy will not fear you anymore. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will place wahan in your hearts. So someone asked, Ya Rasulullah, what is this wahan? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, love of the world and the dislike of death. So this love of the world, what does it do? It weakens the heart. And when a person is so eager and greedy for the world and they start chasing the world, then they also become very weak in the eyes of people. People don't respect them anymore. People don't fear them anymore. So we should all check the state of our hearts. منكم من يريد الدنيا ومنكم من يريد الآخرة ثم صرفكم عنهم ليبتليكم. Then he turned you back from them defeated that he might test you. Meaning he turned you back from them. You were about to win. You were about to, have victory over them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turned you away from them. So he did not allow you to become victorious. Why? لِيَبْتَلِيَكُمْ. In order that he might test you. And it's not that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deprived you. No, Allah gave you victory. Allah fulfilled his promise to you. Your focus shifted. Right? It's because of what you did that you suffered the loss. But in that is also a test, لِيَبْتَلِيَكُمْ. That who will realize their mistake, who will learn from their mistake, who will accept that mistake, and who will improve now. وَلَقَدْ عَفَا عَنْكُمْ. And he has already forgiven you. وَاللَّهُ ذُو فَضْلٍ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And Allah is the possessor of bounty for the believers. Now this is a very important principle that we must remember regarding the companions. وَلَقَدْ عَفَا عَنْكُمْ. That Allah has pardoned them. That even though they made a huge mistake, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pardoned them. So when we talk about the companions, we should not be highlighting their mistakes. And we should not be, talking about them in negative terms. Because they were human. They made errors. But Allah pardoned them. What we need to focus on is our own errors. Then it is said, إِذْ تُصْعِدُونَ وَلَا تَلْوُونَ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ. Remember when you fled and climbed the mountain without looking aside at anyone. وَالرَّسُولُ يَدْعُوكُمْ فِي أُخْرَاكُمْ. While the messenger was calling you from behind. You see, when the enemy came, some Muslims started fleeing. But remember that their back, the Muslims were positioned such that their back was against the mountain of Uhud. So in order to retreat, what did they do? They began climbing the mountain in order to get away. So as they were climbing hard, they did not even look back. They did not care about anyone else. وَلَا تَلْوُونَ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ. In that fear, that shock, that state of fright, they did not look back, waiting or caring about anybody. And what happened at that time? The Prophet ﷺ was calling them that ilayya ibadallah, come towards me, O servants of Allah. Let's regroup, let's gather together and fight back. And when the Prophet ﷺ called them, he put his own life at risk. فَأَثَابَكُمْ غَمًّا بِغَمٍّ. So Allah repaid you with distress upon distress. Distress upon distress. How? That one on top of the other. That how, first of all, they lost, a victory that was so close. And then they lost also the spoils of war that they had just, started to gather. And then, injuries and wounds and the loss of so many lives. So ghamman bi ghammin. One distress after another, one along with another. So many distresses basically gathered upon them. And ghamman bi ghammin has also been understood as that Allah repaid you with distress because of distress. Meaning because of the distress that you caused the Prophet ﷺ by ignoring him, what happened? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made you experience more distress. But in either case, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow you to experience distress? لِكَيْ لَا تَحْزَنُوا. So much distress. Why? لِكَيْ لَا تَحْزَنُوا. In order that you do not grieve. Allahu Akbar. You do not grieve over what? عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ, over that which has escaped you. What is it that escaped them? The victory, the spoils of war. وَلَا مَا أَصَابَكُمْ, or over that which had befallen you. And what is it that had befallen them? So many wounds and injuries and the death of so many companions. وَاللَّهُ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ, and Allah is fully acquainted with what you do. Now, if you think about it, it is two things that constantly make us sad, right? It is ma fatakum and ma asabakum. Ma fatakum, the things that we lose, our losses, whether it is of people, of friendships, of money, of opportunities, and ma asabakum. Secondly, ma asabakum, yani the difficulties that befall us. It could be an illness or a fine, etc. So these two things make us sad, right? And here it is said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repaid you with distress upon distress so that you don't grieve over these matters anymore. Yani the distress that the Muslims experienced at Uhud really expanded their capacity to endure difficulty. Now, the thing is that difficulties are a part of life. There is always going to be, some kind of loss or some kind of, pain, some kind of distress. It's, that there's always going to be something or the other. Today it's too cold. Tomorrow it's too hot. Today we're feeling tired. Tomorrow somebody yells at us. Something or the other happens, right? And in order to attain bigger goals, we really need to have a greater capacity to endure difficulty. Because if little things bother us and we get weak and hurt and overwhelmed because of small things, then how are we meant to continue? How are we meant to move on? How are we meant to move forward and attain bigger goals? So yes, Uhud was extremely difficult. It was extremely painful, but it increased the capacity of the companions and it made them more strong so that they could deal with grief. Wallahu khabirun bima ta'malun, and Allah is fully acquainted with what you do. So you see, grief is something that that can be very detrimental. And grieving is something normal, but if a person remains in a state of grieving all the time, that, oh, I cannot find my book. I don't know where I put it. And now a person is overwhelmed because of that. Or I cannot finish my essay, my assignment. And how am I going to do this? And how am I going to do that? If a person is always worrying about different things, then they cannot focus on completing their goals, on achieving their goals. This is why we have been taught to seek refuge with Allah, that Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan. That, oh Allah, I seek your refuge from worry and grief. That, oh Allah, protect me from this. Because constantly grieving can actually be detrimental. So this is why we have been given the example of the companions at Uhud, that لِكَيْ لَا تَحْزَنُوا. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants that we should not be constantly grieving because it can be detrimental. ثُمَّ أَنزَلَ عَلَيْكُم مِّن بَعْدِ الْغَمِّ أَمَنَةً. Then after distress, Allah sent down upon you security in the form of nu'asan, drowsiness, that was يَغْشَى طَائِفَةً مِّنكُمْ, overcoming a faction of you. A group of companions, what happened to them? That after this state of extreme sadness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them sleepy. And nu'asan is actually sleep that is in the eyes. It is such sleep that causes your eyes to close, that you're not able to keep them open anymore. So Abu Talha radiallahu anhu, he mentioned that my sword fell from my hand on several occasions. And this is something that happens, that when you are overcome by sleep, whatever is in your hand falls, right? Your neck even falls. So Abu Talha radiallahu anhu, he was so sleepy. And this was a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because generally what happens is that when a person is overwhelmed by fear or grief, they're not able to sleep. And the lack of sleep does not allow their body to recover, right? And the body is constantly under stress. But when a person gets to sleep, when a person gets to take a nap, then their body gets to recover. And that strength gives them the ability to bear that grief as well. So some companions were gifted with this. It was a break for them. It was a relief, a blessing for them. وَطَائِفَةٌ قَدْ أَهَمَّتْهُمْ أَنفُسُهُم. While another faction worried about themselves, and they couldn't relax at all. They could not relax at all. They were constantly worrying. And what were they thinking? What was on their mind? يَظُنُّونَ بِاللَّهِ غَيْرَ الْحَقِّ ظَنَّ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ. Thinking of Allah other than the truth, the thought of ignorance. And at that time, some people began thinking, where's the help of Allah? How come, we suffered so much? What happened over here? And they were thinking the way that the people don't know Allah think. And what is it that they were concerned about? Only themselves. And they were thinking that, what, this promise or perhaps this religion is untrue and there is no help of Allah, and that's it. This matter is over. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, غَيْرَ الْحَقِّ. This is untrue. You should never ever think like this about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah has abandoned me, that Allah does not care about me. These kind of thoughts are from shaitan. And these kind of thoughts do not befit a believer. These kind of thoughts are dhann al-jahiliyyah. Jahiliyyah is the time before Islam, or the way of life that is different from Islam. What is Islam? Islam is about tawheed, about knowing that whatever has reached us by the permission of Allah. And there is some wisdom in this. There is some benefit in this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to remove this difficulty from me. And Allah's promise of His help is true. So never entertain negative thoughts about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يَقُولُونَ هَلْ لَنَا مِنَ الْأَمْرِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. Some people were saying, meaning in their minds, is there anything for us to have done in this matter? How come nobody listened to us? How come, this has happened to us? قُلْ إِنَّ الْأَمْرَ كُلَّهُ لِلَّهِ. Say, indeed, the matter belongs completely to Allah. Because you see, before the Prophet ﷺ took the Muslims out to Uhud, he consulted them, right? It was after consultation, it was agreed that the Muslims would go out to fight. Now, everybody, of course, did not want that to happen. They had a different opinion, including the Prophet ﷺ. So there were people thinking over here, هَلْ لَنَا مِنَ الْأَمْرِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. Is anybody ever going to listen to us? Why doesn't anybody listen to us? قُلْ إِنَّ الْأَمْرَ كُلَّهُ لِلَّهِ. Say, you know what? You're not the boss, right? You only get to give your suggestion. You're not the boss. And the decision lies entirely in the hand of Allah. يُخْفُونَ فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ مَا لَا يُبْدُونَ لَكَ. They conceal within themselves what they will not reveal to you. They would never say with their mouths what they're hiding in their hearts. يَقُولُونَ لَوْ كَانَ لَنَا مِنَ الْأَمْرِ شَيْءٌ مَا قُتِلْنَا هَاهُنَا. They say if there was anything we could have done in the matter, some of us would not have been killed right here. Had the choice been ours, had the people listened to us, had they taken our suggestion, right? Had they done what I told them to do, then nothing like this would have happened. Then everybody would be safe right now. Astaghfirullah. There are people who behave like this, and sometimes we make this mistake as well. That everybody gives their suggestion, a matter is agreed, a decision is made, and then as it is carried out, some people are constantly bickering, constantly complaining. And if they don't complain verbally, in their heart at least they're complaining, or in private, they're complaining that nobody listens to us. Had they listened to us, then you know what? Nobody would have suffered. Things would have been very different, as if, they are separating themselves from the rest of the people. قُلْ لَوْ كُنْتُمْ فِي بُيُوتِكُمْ لَبَرَزَ الَّذِينَ كُتِبَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقَتْلُ إِلَى مَضَاجِعِهِمْ. Say, even if you had been inside your houses, those decreed to be killed would have come out to their deathbeds. And you don't say, that if they had listened to you and everybody was in Medina just defending the city of Medina, then nobody would have been killed? No, though the people who were meant to die on this day would have died. وَلِيَبْتَلِيَ اللَّهُ مَا فِي صُدُورِكُمْ وَلِيُمَحِّصَ مَا فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. It was so that Allah might test what is in your chests and purify what is in your hearts. وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِذَاتِ الصُّدُورِ. And Allah is knowing of that within the chests. You see, it is these difficulties that reveal our reality to us, right? And liyabtali Allahu, Allah may test you, because we say for example, when it comes to working in a team, we say, yes, we're with you, we will work with the team. But then when things go wrong, when things not necessarily go wrong, but when things don't turn out to be the way we expected them, then what do we do? Do we start pointing fingers? Do we start blaming people? And then you see this word وَلِيُمَحِّصَ مَا فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. This is mentioned again. يُمَحِّص, tamhis, is to fully clean something, right? It's to polish something almost. You see, mahasa al-habal, habal is a rope, and mahasa is to clean it in such a way that there is no strands left on the rope. Because as long as those strands are there, it's going to be pokey, right? So when it is shaved so that there's no strands left, nothing sticking out, this is tamhis. So يُمَحِّصَ مَا فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to clean your hearts. And that's going to happen when you are tested, when you're put in difficult situations, and Allah is knowing of that within the chests. Then it is said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ تَوَلَّوْا مِنْكُمْ يَوْمَ الْتَقَى الْجَمْعَانِ. Indeed, those of you who turned back on the day the two armies met, إِنَّمَا اسْتَزَلَّهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ بِبَعْضِ مَا كَسَبُوا. It was shaitan who caused them to slip because of some blame they had earned. Now, what is this referring to? You see, when the mushrikeen came back to attack the Muslims, the front files of the Muslims turned their backs, okay, and they started fighting the Muslims that were behind them. Why? Because at this time, Shaitan also shouted. Shaitan shouted, "Beware of what is behind you. Watch your back. Look what is behind you." So some Muslims, they literally turned around and they started fighting the people who were behind them. And among them was who? One of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Yaman radiallahu anhu. So when his son Hudayfa radiallahu anhu saw that here there's a group of Muslims fighting my father who is also a Muslim, he yelled at them. He said, "That is my father, that is my father." But they did not stop. They continued to fight him until they killed him. Astaghfirullah. They weren't paying attention. They were acting out of haste, in panic. And Hudayfa radiallahu anhu kept saying, "May Allah forgive you, may Allah forgive you." So it is said over here that those of you who turned back on that day, and he literally turned back and started fighting other Muslims, and this was an accident. Why did this happen? This was because Shaitan caused them to slip. And why? Because of some blame they had earned. They were acting in that haste because of the panic that Shaitan created. And this was a result of some blame that they had earned, meaning something wrong that they had done elsewhere in their life. And as a result of that, Shaitan was able to have an influence on them. And this should cause us to really introspect that when things go wrong, when we end up making mistakes, perhaps we need to think that where is it that I'm disobeying Allah? Where is it that I'm listening to Shaitan? Because of which Shaitan has so much influence on me. And you know what? It doesn't have to be really big things. Think about it. The Prophet ﷺ forbade us from eating with our left hand. Why? Because Shaitan eats with the left hand, right? So if we don't care about this, and as we're grazing throughout the day, we pick something up with our left hand and eat it, guess what? Shaitan has a greater influence on us. If we, the time that we're entering our home, we have been told to say Bismillah so that Shaitan doesn't come in. But if we don't say Bismillah, right, then we allow Shaitan to come in. We're eating food, we don't begin with Bismillah, we allow Shaitan to participate. Then what's happening? We're welcoming Shaitan into our lives. And if we welcome shaitan into our lives, we're allowing him to have an influence on us. So what do you think? Isn't shaitan going to influence us to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? To do wrong things, to make such huge errors? So whenever there are such huge errors, the first thing we need to do is seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and think really that where am I allowing shaitan into my life? وَلَقَدْ عَفَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ. It was a mistake. But you know what? Allah has already forgiven them. So these were the companions who made a mistake, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave them. إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ حَلِيمٌ. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and forbearing. And this is so beautiful that yes, big mistakes happen, big mistakes, but Allah is forgiving and forbearing. So be forgiving towards yourself also, and be forbearing with yourself also, because sometimes we're too hard on ourselves. We remain stuck in our mistakes. We don't allow ourselves to move forward. Remind yourself, Allah forgives. I should also forgive myself. And part of that is that I learn from my mistakes. I seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I don't repeat the same mistakes over and over again. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the wisdom to really learn from our errors so that we don't keep on making those same mistakes again and again. Inshallah, we will conclude over here for today. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.